Good afternoon, this is WCRD weather forecaster Nathan Gidley here with an evening forecast update. We saw some snow this morning and that's going to continue through the rest of tonight, with snow becoming likely late and maybe some freezing rain mixing in with the low of 19 degrees, chance of snow 90%. We're looking at about 1 inch of snowfall overnight and little or no ice accumulation. For Wednesday, snow likely in the morning, the remaining cloudy in the afternoon, a high of 27 degrees, a low of 11 degrees. For Thursday, partly cloudy skies return, a high of 30, before cloudy skies come back to the picture on Friday with just a slight chance of a rain or snow shower, a high of 39. For all your weather needs, go to WCRD.net or listen in to Live at 5. This is weather forecaster Nathan Gidley. Hope you have a great evening.
All right, we are here with the Fantasy Express on 91.3 FM and on Facebook on live video on my profile. How you doing, Steven?
I'm doing good. Look at the new host over there across the desk. You excited?
Well, yeah, it's pretty exciting. You can follow Steven at Steven_Sobek and me at Robert L. Segovia on Twitter. I had to throw the L in there because I want to be unique. Put my middle name in there, Lewis, by the way, if anybody wanted to know. So yeah, we're starting a little earlier due to Ball State women's basketball taking on Eastern Michigan tonight. So keep it here for live coverage of that game. Tip-off is at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I been to a couple of women's games. Unfortunately, I cannot go tonight, but they have a very solid record, good in conference, and hopefully they can make the big dance. Speaking of the big dance, I'm really hoping that the Ball State men's basketball team can make a run. They looked very good yesterday. Taylor Persons, yet again, for the third time this year, knocked home a game-winning three-pointer last night, lifting Ball State over Bowling Green 59-56. If you haven't been to a game this year, you're really missing out. There is one on Friday at 9 o'clock against Kent State. It's on ESPNU, but as far as I'm aware, that's not available in the dorms. So let's pack the nest for that one. You can't watch it on your TV eating popcorn. So be at the game and supporting them, because I'll tell you what, it seems like the games continue to come down to the wire, and we have an answer. And it's something special. Hopefully that we're going to need a run in the MAC tournament to be able to make the big tournament. But who knows? It's good that we have solid play down the stretch of games.
Yeah, and Persons, he had that game winner versus Notre Dame that really got the school into it. I know there's been a lot more attendance at the games, so Ball State is really getting more recognition, not only on a state level with those wins over Notre Dame and Valpo, with Persons being that X factor, but on a national level, I know they were March Madness tweeted about Ball State last night in that win. So it's really exciting. You guys have to get out there. I know I'm going to try and attend that game on Friday. So maybe me and Steven are going to go together, but yeah, it should be good.
Yes, I will drag you to that game on Friday night. But no, yeah, Taylor, he's hit 3 game-winning three-pointers, a fourth to send the game into overtime against Kent State, so maybe a little foreshadowing for Friday, and then a fifth. It was a layup, the first game of the season against Dayton. Unfortunately, we let the lead slip in the last seconds, but it's always interesting, and I hope everybody comes out and supports the team.
Yeah, and getting into some other news, going into the MLB, the Yankees acquired not only Giancarlo Stanton in this offseason, but also Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, that's an interesting name to hear in MLB rumors because, yeah, he's a quarterback. He's in football, but he is expected to make an appearance at the Yankees training camp in Tampa in their Grapefruit League. So, Wilson did deny the possibility of becoming a two-sport athlete and switch from football to baseball, but he reiterated his love and passion for the game with a quote here While football is my passion and my livelihood, baseball remains a huge part of where I came from and who I am today. I've learned so much on the baseball field that translates to my game physically and mentally playing quarterback in the NFL. I thank the Rangers and their great fans for making me feel at home and a part of the family. While I embrace the chance to be a New York Yankee, I will forever be grateful to have been part of a world-class organization like the Texas Rangers. Hey, Steven, what do you think about Russell Wilson at training camp with the Yankees? Do you think he has a future with baseball if things go sour in football?
He's not a Yankee.
Oh, wow.
He's not a Yankee. We've seen this in the past. Some athletes will go, especially in football, and go to baseball organizations to work out in their off season. That seems to be what Wilson is doing this time around with the Yankees. He's done it again with the Rangers. But I mean, everything's gone south since he won that Super Bowl in Seattle. Right. I mean, I don't think he's going to switch sports. That's not a good decision for him. But, I mean, I don't think we need to make anything of it. It's cool. Maybe Colin Kaepernick should look into baseball because he remember he was drafted by the Cubs and, chose football. But, who knows?
That'd be interesting. We do need another reliever for the Cubs. So that would be pretty cool to see Kaepernick over in the blue and white pinstripes.
Yeah,
so,
Kaepernick running the pistol formation on the mound. That would be something to see.
That would be a World Series formation for the Cubs. That would be really cool. But yeah, we're going to get into the Super Bowl. Steven, do you want to talk a little bit about that New England-Philadelphia game?
Well, it was an incredible game. Unfortunately, Robert and I both picked New England, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine losing this one. There are some that hurt to lose. This was one of those predictions where, to be honest, I was hoping I wasn't going to get it right, and I did not. Mm-hmm. Final score was 41-33. Yep. I had said 27-20 New England. I was a little off on that.
And my prediction last week was 42-28 New England over Philadelphia. Flip the team, subtract a few, and I was right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Philadelphia pulled out that win 41-33 over the Patriots. And it was interesting with Nick Foles replacing Carson Wentz. You have his stats here as Super Bowl 52 MVP. What do you think about his performance?
Yeah, it was certainly an MVP performance. He threw for 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he also caught a pass for a score from tight end Trey Burton. And they're now dubbing this play the Philadelphia Special. So, Robert, I have to ask, what sounds better, Philadelphia Special or Minneapolis Miracle?
I mean, those sound like fantastic food items at your local restaurant in both cities. I would have to go with the Minneapolis Miracle. That sounds a lot better and more appetizing to me. Actually, it was a much cooler play too. I love that Vikings. At the end of the game, it meant a lot more. And although the Vikings didn't make it to the Super Bowl, it was really cool to see Stephon Diggs catch that pass and score a touchdown. And the Philadelphia Special was okay, but it's
a little lame.
Yeah, it was a little lame, kind of reminiscent of that Bears 2-point conversion earlier in the season where Trubisky, caught a lateral pass and scored that 2-point conversion, maybe copying. Philadelphia was copying the Bears there, maybe.
Yeah, well, that particular play I've seen multiple times. I can tell you, I know a few Detroit Lions fans that said, hey, that's an exact copy of something we ran in Week 17. The first time I saw a play, and it wasn't on a 4th down, it was to convert on a 2-point conversion. Kind of the same scenario, but it was Clemson, and I believe Taj Boyd and Sammy Watkins, receiver to quarterback, Watkins to Boyd in the end zone for the 2-point conversion. So it's nothing new, but it is exciting to see, and I'm glad that Philadelphia decided that the entire game they were not going to take their foot off the gas pedal, and I think that's what pushed them over the finish line on Sunday.
Yeah, and the Eagles' victory was really special, but Nick Foles, we're saying Super Bowl 52 MVP. Do you think it would have played out differently if Carson Wentz was under center as the quarterback? And after that, who do you think would be staying or leaving Philly, Wentz or Foles?
Well, logically speaking, you can't get rid of Carson Wentz because he was so successful for you this season. And Wentz, I think if you were to say, okay, yeah, Nick Foles, that whole thing never happened. Wentz didn't tear his ACL, and he was in all of the games for Philadelphia. I do think it would have been a different outcome, and I don't even know if Philadelphia would have made it to the Super Bowl. And I definitely don't think they would have won, because there's something to be said for having a chip on your shoulder. And you've seen the interviews. Philadelphia had this underdog mentality as the favorite. I mean, they had a great regular season record, so they came into the playoffs as a top seed. But still, they were overlooked the entire postseason, and their players knew it, their coaches knew it, they bonded over it, and I think that's what ultimately led to their Super Bowl victory. So if Carson Wentz was able to go, I think it would have been different, not in a way that Philadelphia fans would be so happy about.
Yeah, and looking over at the Patriots, did you see anything from Tom Brady that maybe played into them losing? Did you think that the Patriots did something different where Philadelphia was able to take advantage, or do you think this was just the Eagles playing at their absolute best?
No, the one drive where the Phillies defensive front got the best of Brady was that strip sack fumble recovery by Derek Barnett. Other than that, I think the Patriots had Philadelphia where they wanted them, on the offensive side of the ball. The Patriots are going to tell you that they lost this game because of the defense. And I think that's definitely kind of what led to the defeat. And unfortunately for Lions fans, they're getting they're getting Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator, going, oh boy, he just gave up 41 points in the Super Bowl to a team without their real starting quarterback. So that's a bit of a concern in Detroit. But going back to the game and the Patriots, no, I mean, I think that they're going to regret a lot of things. I mean, you do anytime you lose a game. But you look at the box score, if you were to tell me that Tom Brady was going to have 505 yards passing and Chris Hogan, Rob Gronkowski, and Danny Amendola were going to each have 100-plus yards receiving, you would find a hard time figuring a way for Philadelphia to come out on top in that game. Because usually, if you're back and forth with Tom Brady, you're not going to outscore him. So it's one of those things where, the result wasn't what the Patriots were hoping for, but they did everything they could to be in a position to win.
Yeah, and going into one of the other game-changing moments, Zach Ertz, he had an 11-yard touchdown reception. It was pretty controversial. So, Steven, well, let's go ahead and ask the real question. Was it a catch? Was it not?
Of course it was a catch. I mean, I don't even understand. Chris Collinsworth kind of made a debate out of nothing about that on the broadcast. Basically, my interpretation of the rule, and I don't even know if I have a particular interpretation of it because it's straightforward, but when you see it in action, it's confusing on what referees are looking for in the review process to determine a catch or not. I've always thought that you've got possession, and if you make any kind of what's deemed a football move, that qualifies as a catch, and anything that happens after that, it would be a fumble if you lost the ball, or if you cross the goal line, the play's dead after that, or if your knee touches down, the ball's dead. But in this case, Ertz clearly caught the ball, was running with it, took 3 steps, turned, and then made the football move of diving to the end zone. Then the ball hit the ground. It came out, and he actually ended up catching it. Not that mattered. The ball had already hit the ground at that point. But no, I really didn't see the debate there. The I mean, I don't know. I guess the consensus is the ruling was a good one. However, it didn't match up to what we've seen in the past. This goes all the way back to 2010. I don't know if you recall the play, but Calvin Johnson against the Bears the first week caught a touchdown. It's really been called the Calvin Johnson rule. Caught a touchdown, rolled over, placed the ball on the ground, got up and started celebrating. They reviewed it, said that he didn't maintain possession through the process of the catch, meaning that he had to, survive the ground before that was ever returned. And funny enough, Gene Steratore was the head referee in that game. So we've come full circle 8 years later. He made the call saying that Ertz broke the plane of the goal line, made a football move, had possession, and it was a touchdown. And it was the deciding touchdown in the game.
Right. And we go back to the Jesse James controversial call in Week 15 with the Steelers, another team that was playing the Patriots. It seems that the Patriots are on the opposite end of these make or break calls. And for me, it was definitely a catch, like you said. But what I'm having a problem with is, I'm saying both of those catches, the Jesse James one and the Zach Ertz one, both catches, both touchdowns. But it's all that counts for me is really the no contact from a defender. You get the ball across the pylon and you're in. That's how it is to me in Madden. That's how it is to me when I watch the game. It's no question. I don't know why anybody has to review it. If you're diving over the pylon out of bounds, all you have to do is reach across and you're in. You don't have to maintain possession.
It's a common sense ruling that has been altered so much by replay and almost over analysis of some of these plays. The whole reason replay is there is to correct some, because there are going to be calls in the game where the referee that made the call really did mess up, and it shouldn't take many replays to go, okay, we had the wrong ruling, we're going to overrule this. When you slow things down, and you mentioned it to me a little bit before the show, you start to skew reality a little bit, and you can almost convince anybody that what happened was the opposite of when it occurred in real time. So with the Jesse James catch you brought up earlier this year against New England, there was a difference in the fact that Jesse James caught the ball, turned in one motion, and then the ball hit the ground, whereas Ertz was running. If the defender's not there, he walks into the end zone and he catches the ball. So I think that was the major difference between those two. And really, I think you have to put the Des Bryant catch or non-catch against Green Bay into that conversation as well. That was more of similar to the Ertz catch, but that was not ruled a touchdown. Des caught the ball along the sideline and then extended. The ball hit the ground, was ruled incomplete. So there's a bit of a gray area, and the NFL really needs to nail this rule down, spend the offseason to try and figure out, how can we provide more clarity? Do we really need to look at all these plays in slow motion 15, 20 times over to see if the ruling needs to be changed?
Yeah, and before we head into our first break of the show, all I'm saying is that do we really need a replay option after every play? Do we need to see it 1,000 times from every angle? It's the same thing going on in baseball. There's over-analysis, too many looks at replays, and I get trying to get it right, but it's just there's too much time being taken in looking into these plays. It should be a one look a few times over to confirm or deny the previous thought, and that's it. And they need to be solved. Something needs to be done about this. And we'll be back with more of the Fantasy Express. We're going to be talking about the Olympics, NBA news, and some coordinators, head coaches, different area changes for these different people around the league.
Basically, people accepting jobs and then going, nah, we're good.
Exactly. So we'll be right back.
You're listening to WWHI Muncie, Indiana, WCRD 91.3 FM, always better radio.
Hi, Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, and father of 5. I'm also an expert on drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids, and there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org.
And lead the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ed Council.
Looking for uncommon talent? Meet the Grads of Life. They're not the typical candidates you're used to, but they're exactly who your company needs. An ideal fit for entry-level positions, internships, and even mentorships. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn more. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
We are back on the Fantasy Express. We're going to resume our conversation a little bit more, talking about the what is and what isn't a catch in the NFL. And one point that I did want to bring up is, that we talk about surviving the ground. That is a generally a new term we've just, been hearing over the last couple of years. And it's just being blown out of proportion so much. I mean, Robert, I don't know what you think, but they assembled a committee just a couple of years ago to examine the catch rule and determine if anything needed to be changed, and they concluded no. So what is there? What's left to do?
I don't know, because the NFL has all these rules. They have minds changing about different topics, whether or not to replay something, how many replays to do, and the media itself. You watch a game and you see it from every angle. You yourself can make a decision.
We don't help things, apparently.
No, I mean, we never do. But it's always interesting to me when I'm watching the game with either my roommates or family. We always figure out if it's a catch, no catch, if it's a fumble, no fumble, before the referees do. And it's the referee's job to have a stronghold opinion on the rules, interpretations, and it's their decision at the end of the day. And I don't think anybody back in the replay booth somewhere else is going to be able to determine anything to them. It's the referees in the game. That's their job. It's what they need to do. I don't think we need to call back somewhere and find out what is a problem.
No, yeah. And 2 points. First of all, and we've seen it, in these playoffs and in college, and certain officials are starting to lean on replay as treating it as a crutch. You'll see plays not blown dead because, we can just look at it in replay and see if it was, which is fair. But I think it's starting to become a little too much, and we have to figure out, how to make it better and not slow the games down too much and all that. And that's more of an issue in basketball with the stoppages in play. But another thing is we're talking about the Zach Ertz catch, when in fact I think the Corey Clement catch, based on the history of the rule and what I've seen in my years watching football, should have been incomplete. Should have been ruled incomplete right away. There was a little bit of a bobble, and by the time he reestablished possession of the ball, his next step was out of bounds. So I think that could have been ruled incomplete. Now, I'm not saying that New England deserves to get that call, overturned, because I'm telling you, all this year you've had the Jesse James overturn, the Kelvin Benjamin catch against the Bills. That one decently similar to the Corey Clement catch. Things like that. But it seems like 1 week we've got this ruling, then the next week we have the other. Did you think Clement's touchdown should have stood?
In my opinion, no. What about you?
No, I mean, I don't think there was any debate as to whether he caught the ball. But by the time he, like I said, he had possession, he was well out of bounds. So they said that the call stood, meaning, that there wasn't conclusive enough evidence to overturn it, and it is what it is. Eagles won by 8, right?
Right.
that's what matters. And you said you couldn't watch a game without having all these replays, and another thing you can't do is watch a game without hearing the term RPO. That's run pass option for you who probably haven't watched a football game, because other than that, they've said it time and time again. Doesn't matter if you're watching Pop Warner or the NFL, they probably talk about it. But it's funny because they always bring it up, and they fail to mention, at least in my opinion, the most important part of the RPO. You're supposed to read, you're going to have a key. If you're the quarterback, you're going to have a key to read. It's a linebacker, somebody in the secondary, and they will determine if you hand the ball off to your running back or, throw it to a receiver. It's funny because the main risk and the reason this hasn't been a thing is because you can get caught having linemen downfield if you choose to pull the ball back and you can't get the ball away fast enough. You run the risk of a penalty.
Right. So
teams have perfected this a little bit, where the run blocking hasn't been as effective because you got to watch a little bit, but the answer to the RPO is really playing that inside coverage and trying to force the receiver outside, meaning, the quarterback's got to hold on to the ball a little longer, and maybe you get a lineman downfield. But that's been the point that I wish somebody would have brought up over the last season in football and hasn't been said. So there you have it. But RPO certainly a thing that's become the hot topic in football. It's not going to be going away anytime soon either. Remember the pistol formation and the option, the read option were really big like 5 years ago, and they're still here. So it's not going to be the end of the RPO.
Yeah, and going into another storyline around the NFL, we have coordinators switching jobs, going other places, and then some pulling back from jobs that we thought they had. And we're talking about Josh McDaniels accepting the Indy job, backing out of the deal, and staying in New England. What do you make of Josh McDaniels doing that and staying with the Patriots? Do you think he has a future with the team after Bill Belichick leaves? Is that why he made that decision, or is it more about Andrew Luck?
Oh, it has to be. Either he found out some ridiculous news about Andrew Luck's future that we don't know about and that isn't being reported, or, which the more likely option is, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft sat down with him saying, hey, look, we want you to be a part of this organization long term, and here's our plan. This is what we're going to do. And he liked how that sounded, which, who wouldn't? But here's the problem, is you committed to a team. You hired assistants already that you were going to have on your coaching staff in Indianapolis, and now you're going to back out on that, franchise, your commitment to them, to go back to New England because Daddy Bill said, hey, stay here. Really, that's where we're at. So it's kind of sad to see McDaniel's agent dropped him after this decision. It shocked even him. And the GM for the Colts, Adam Ballard, he had a press conference saying that the rivalry with New England is back on. Now, I don't know what you think about this, Robert, but the Colts need to iron out a few of their own details before they turn to any other teams and start talking about rivalries.
Yeah, Ballard, he's talking about how the Colts have Andrew Luck and he's not going to need another surgery. And, I heard earlier this morning that he will need another surgery. They need to straighten out things at the quarterback position, find out what's really happening from the doctors. And if he is preparing a return for the 2018 season, finding a coach to actually be coaching the team. After that, maybe we can talk about rivalries with, the Bears or Tennessee or Jacksonville, not New England. New England's too good for them.
Yeah, and one small correction, first of all, before I get into my point. I said Adam Ballard. I had a professor freshman year named Adam Ballard. What I meant to say was Chris, yes. But anyways, so I think with McDaniels going back to New England, it's interesting because I think for one, if you're a Colts fan, maybe you're a little bit, things are tough right now, but maybe you're relieved because it didn't seem like he was ready to take over as head coach. Think about that. Bill Belichick offering more of a mentorship to McDaniels suggests that maybe he wasn't ready. So you have to look at that, and then after you realize, okay, McDaniels ditched us, much like Tennessee had happened to them, the Volunteers in college with the firing of Butch Jones. So we're seeing another similar scenario play out, this time in Indy. But now you got to move on and think of replacements. And the two names that come to mind are Dave Tube, the special teams coordinator in Kansas City, and Frank Reich, who is the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. And he began his career with the Colts. So of those two guys, who do you think would be the best fit in Indy?
I'm never really a fan of special teams coaches making the move to head coaching, so it makes more sense for Frank Reich. Like you said, began with the Colts, just had the offensive coordinator gig with Philadelphia, and he's going to be teams are going to be seeking out a person like Frank Reich to be the coach, and I think he is a pretty good option. You talk about Mike Mularkey on the sheet here. Do you think after Tennessee that he might explore another AFC South team?
Yeah, I have Mularkey's name down here simply because, one, I don't understand his firing in the first place, even though they mutually parted ways. I think there was something else going on behind the scenes. I think that a lot of the, in the NFL, there's this tendency to want to say, okay, everybody that just got fired is totally not qualified to take our new head coaching position. You rarely see coaching swaps. This is a situation now where you're going to start to be pulling guys that never really had their name in the running to be head coach for these teams that now have new guys at the helm, like a Frank Reich, who his name really didn't come up. And Philadelphia is such a tight-knit group now that there's a very good potential that he could just say, you know what, no, not right now. I don't want. I'm comfortable here. I don't see that going to Indy will be in my best interest. So that's very possible. Tube, I know, had his name thrown around for the Bears job and a couple other teams. So he, of the guys left, probably would make some good sense if Reich doesn't want to leave Philadelphia. But yeah, Coach Mularkey, I know it's just going a little bit north. In the same division, but he's one heck of a coach. I mean, he doesn't really have that great of a ball club, but he developed that defense from scratch. The anchor of that whole entire team is their offensive line, and that's where the Colts struggle the most. So maybe he could come in and turn some things around, get some guys through the draft, and try to rebuild there. But I don't, unfortunately, think that the Colts are going to look to him to solve their problem.
Maybe John Fox. Do you see that?
No, that's ridiculous. No, he shouldn't coach again.
All right, there you have it.
I mean, he had his moment, but no.
You heard it here first, folks. Steven Sobek says John Fox should never coach again. And it's a nice transition into the NBA.
Yeah, well, I don't want John Fox calling my Madden plays after what I saw with him and Trubisky. And it was sad because, to be honest, I mean, like, before we get into the NBA, the Bears, they traded up to get Mitch Trubisky. He was their guy, okay? And you had someone in charge that could not develop him one bit, had no trust in Trubisky, and really collapsed that entire franchise. And not that it wasn't already in shambles, but made it even worse. And just he doesn't have any. I don't know. It was weird. It's like the Bears had nothing to lose, and he was being conservative every single week.
Yeah, exactly. Trubisky really needed a push from the coach. That's why it makes so much sense, that they got rid of Fox, because it is Trubisky's team now. There's no denying it. The Bears have no real stars. I mean, you can look at Jordan Howard, obviously, but that's no fun. I mean, Trubisky, it makes too much sense for him to take over at the helm, make a run, and next season it's going to be interesting because he had no receivers, and now he's going to get back a Cameron Meredith, Kevin White, I say his name, but no, he's not going to be there.
He who must not be named, Kevin White. Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe Kendall Wright. That'd be cool. And they have Victor Cruz. It'll be so cool to see him actually play to his full potential, and it's exciting as a Bears fan.
Right, yeah. So getting back to John Fox, it's plain and simple. Any team that gets rid of their coach is probably not in a position to bring in a guy who wants to be conservative. That's as bluntly as I can put that, and that's where we're at. So yeah, I don't think he's an option, especially not in Indy.
All right, you know, going into the basketball league, NBA,
The Basketball League.
Exactly.
NBA stands for National Basketball Association. We are rebranding it, however, as the Basketball League.
Well, we're on the Fantasy Express talking all the sports, no fantasy anymore. So we have the right to call all the shows anything we want, all the sports, really anything. So we're going to talk about Kristaps Porzingis, tore his ACL.
Yeah, I don't know. It's looking even worse in New York than it already was, and it's been looking bad for quite some time. Porzingis is out for probably about a year now, recovering from the torn ACL he suffered against Milwaukee. It's in his left knee. The Knicks are 5 games out of the playoffs at the moment in the East. They already had slim chances as it was, but I mean now you lose the face of your organization, the face or one of the faces of the city, and you got to figure out what the next step is. So I will ask you, Robert, if you were in charge in New York, what would you do at the trade deadline?
Well, you know, they already dealt away Hernan Gomez to Charlotte for a pick. That was pretty smart. Something else that I would do is get rid of Courtney Lee. He's taking a lot of their salary cap. $11.5 million to be exact, and really just getting rid of some salary so they can free up space for some signings in the offseason. They're in rebuild mode. As much as New York likes to say they're always in contention, they're not. The Knicks are definitely a team that really needs to look over their options. They have Michael Beasley, who's been showing up for them a lot this season. Actually, it's interesting to see now the upward trend of Derrick Rose at the beginning of his career as the number 1 pick and the number 2 pick having that same rise where Derrick Rose is falling. So I like Beasley in that Knicks uniform.
Yeah.
Are there any players that you think should stay with the Knicks to help that rebuild process, or do you think they should just get rid of everybody?
Well, here's the way I look at it. If you see their roster, it's made up of mostly, older guys, you could argue has-beens, and then some younger core pieces, like a Tim Hardaway. But the way I see it is, if they're trying to determine if they need to sell at the deadline, which I think is the obvious option, or try to get guys, it's the mental image that comes to mind is all these guys sitting in a boardroom with their suits on, and they look at whoever's up there with their PowerPoint, and he points to it and goes, "You know what? We're going to build our franchise around Michael Beasley." And there's not going to be one face in that room that's not cracking at least a smile, if not laughing out loud, because I mean, he was the former 2nd overall pick, and really his career has not turned out the way that he would want it or anybody else in the league would want it to. And he's finally finding his groove, but he's not the piece that you're gonna build around. You just don't. You're just not gonna keep him. So then when you say, all right, we're gonna get rid of Beasley, you look at Joakim Noah. There's another soap opera in New York. What do you make of him?
Well, Joakim only really played well for the Bulls. I mean, with a lot of, on the Knicks, you have McDermott and Noah, both former Bulls, who really shined in their time with Chicago, and now they're both with the Knicks, and I think they could thrive elsewhere. I don't see Noah really playing up to his potential anymore. He's already done his deal with the Bulls in that Celtics series back. I don't know how many years, but I mean, that's when Noah was in his prime.
Yeah, it's been a while, and really Joakim Noah only had success under Thibodeau, to be more specific, not even just Chicago, but Coach Thibodeau. So is that another former Bull that could maybe reunite in Minnesota? Because we've seen so many.
Oh, the Timberwolves could, use another piece, a big piece like Noah. That'd be pretty cool to see him play with the T-Wolves. They have such a cool roster. Even McDermott. If they can trade both of them to the Timberwolves for maybe a few picks down the line, oh man, Minnesota's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, the Minnesota Bulls at that point.
Yeah, that's what I called them before the season. That it makes the most sense. Jimmy Butler, Tom Thibodeau, just reunite everybody.
Jamal Crawford from way back in the day, former Bull. Yeah, no, I don't know if Minnesota's the fit, but they're going to have to unload. And they're probably not going to get a lot in return. That's another thing. You might end up with a situation where New York's throwing out a bunch of G Leaguers by the season's end. Because, I don't know, would you want Joakim Noah? I'm not trying to be that guy, but would you want him on your team? A lot of these teams that are contending for playoff spots already have their identity. And then you throw a guy in there like Noah who can get, worked up. Fiery. I don't know how great of a locker room guy he is, but he could upset the balance. Do you take that chance?
Maybe if it was the 2008, 2009 Chicago Bulls, around that time, if we're talking 2K, getting some old rosters in there. But no, I don't take Noah. I don't take anybody from the Knicks. They're such a bad team.
Yeah, but I mean, somebody's going to do it. So that's the thing is, you're probably going to get a team that's looking to bolster their bench, build depth, and that's usually the goal at the trade deadline. But there's so many sellers out there that you might see a team that you're not expecting, to be in the market for some of these guys go after. And hopefully for them, whichever team that may be, it turns out well, and we might look back and go, man, they did something real special at the trade deadline that didn't seem to have a lot of talent or at least guys that you would want to have on your squad.
And we talk about sellers, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, they just got blown out by the Orlando Magic. And I just have to ask, what's going on in Cleveland? Do they need to make any moves before the trade deadline to try and entice LeBron to stay? Or do they just need to empty house and rebuild because we already know that LeBron's going to leave at the end of the season? Cleveland
got their championship. And I think that's all that's going to be, going on in the city that nobody wants to live in. Now, I've heard some things about Cleveland. Anyways, with LeBron and that whole situation, it's like a glorified Kardashian household. There's drama every step of the way. They're gonna have to unload some guys. I mean, you're looking. There's another. They're kind of like the Knicks, except they have LeBron. Where you've got Derrick Rose, and they thought at the beginning of the season, everyone thought that the Kyrie deal could work out for both teams. Look who's laughing now, right? I mean, it's Isaiah Thomas is finally over his hip injury. He's not doing anything for him. You've got Jay Crowder, another piece that looked to be solid, at least on the defensive end. Not really doing a whole lot. So, I don't know. Cleveland needs to sell. And they need to figure out their locker room because it's been years that this has been happening. They thought, let's bring in Coach Lou. He'll be the solution. No, that wasn't it. So, I don't know if it's LeBron or if it's Kevin Love or the fact that those two don't get along. But Love's out of the picture now with his injured hand. So, you've got all this mess. It's mixing together to form this huge storm, and they're going to have to break it up because otherwise it's going to turn into a hurricane. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah, and Lou's not really a coach. It's
No.
LeBron.
Yeah.
LeBron is the head coach of the Cavaliers. And you just talked about Isaiah Thomas and the locker room. Well, I have a quote here from Isaiah Thomas after last night's game. Right now, when we hit adversity, we go our separate ways. And that's just how I feel. And it looks like that as well. Guys start to go one-on-one on offense, and the defense is every man for himself. The first half we played good. Everybody was happy. It was energized, helping each other on the defensive end, sharing the ball. The ball was moving side to side on offense, and when we revert back to what makes us lose games. What? Isaiah, are you saying that the team that you went to and you're saying, oh, we can beat the Celtics in the finals when in the conference finals when we face them? You're not even going to get there. Isaiah's pretty much saying that the locker room is the big problem and that everyone just is for themselves. They're all independent drama queens that, nothing's going to get done as a team.
And will certain NBA locker rooms turn out that way? I will give Thomas credit. He's always a great interview. He's very honest. So I would highly doubt that the story is any different than what he's saying it is. But you've got a bunch of guys that came together and thought this was going to be something big. And it turns out that it's the opposite of big. And now you're dealing with the leftovers of this whole situation backfiring. So you're going to have to make a move. And unfortunately, this might have been the beginning of the end. You just mentioned Coach Lue not really being a coach. It's funny because I thought in Miami, Spoelstra, I was like, this guy is not, it's just a ploy so that LeBron can coach this team. It turns out Eric Spoelstra is an incredible coach. So, maybe you give Ty Lue a break without LeBron and see what he can do. I'd be open to it, but I don't know. I just don't see LeBron staying past this year if things don't change. And we'll find out where he ends up. Potentially the Lakers, some may say.
The Lakers,
maybe.
Even the Warriors.
I don't know. I don't want him.
I heard that. I heard they would go with Steph Curry at the point, Klay Thompson as shooting guard, Durant at small forward, LeBron at his new power forward role, and then have Draymond at center, which doesn't make any sense.
Would that be good for the league, though?
No,
exactly.
I mean, he doesn't want to. He hasn't verbally said, hey, I want to move to Golden State, but he's considering it. He's definitely moving to California.
Where it's nice and warm and he doesn't have to deal with Cleveland. Yeah, I'd do the same. I just don't think that LeBron, he's almost announced that, that there's no way he's going to go to Golden State. And I don't think Golden State, I don't know. I just don't see him meshing well with those guys.
Well, and, we talk about the Warriors, and they lost to Oklahoma City again by a score of 125 to 105. That's the second loss this season for the Warriors against the Thunder. Do you think the Thunder have any shot of making it over that hump in the playoffs?
Yes, I do. Add another team to the list. We said Houston last week, Oklahoma City. Another team that they're kind of stumbling going into the break. Things aren't going the way that they want. They'll need some rest to recover, time off away from each other, just like Golden State needs at this point, because that's what's happening to them. But I think, at the top of their games, Russell Westbrook's just about as unguardable as any player in the league.
Almost another triple-double, 34 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. I mean, that guy can really do it all. I mean, we talk about how James Harden is pretty much the MVP every season, but Westbrook makes a solid case every time as well as that underdog. And Paul George had 38 points as well, another 30-point game. But Carmelo, 0 points. Wow. Dropped an egg in the box score on 4 field goals and 1 3-point shot. Do you think Carmelo needs to stay on the bench for the Thunder to prevail? Because he only had 6 minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Oklahoma City, as long as 2 of them are going well, that's what you need. I mean, Paul George might be the smoothest basketball player I've seen play. Watching his game, the way he gets into the flow with his shot, and he just looks like James Bond would out on the basketball court. He's something to see. So you couple that with Paul George, not with Paul George, he is Paul George, with Russell Westbrook, and you've got a pretty dynamic 1-2 combination. Steven Adams is a good offensive rebounder. I think they have their man there. However, I do notice that there is some games where the game flow doesn't lend itself to Adams being out on the court. One that comes to mind is Denver. I watched that game. They played the Nuggets. They lost on a buzzer beater by Gary Harris. I saw Adams just kind of didn't know what to do out there. He was trying to guard the little guys. They'd blow right past him. So there's a guy who might match up better against Eastern Conference teams than he does against the Warriors, let's say. Or even the Rockets. Maybe the Rockets because they have Capella. But really the Warriors don't have that big guy where Adams would be that useful. So he might kind of find himself in an up and down game not knowing what to do. He sets screens, kind of looks lost. So there's a guy that has potential but maybe isn't used the way that they should use him. And then, Melo, he actually the reason he only played the minutes he played was he sprained his ankle. So he didn't return. And that was the whole reason for the stat line. But either way, even if that was a normal night, I don't think you'd be concerned. I mean, that's just me. I don't think you'd be concerned.
Well, Oklahoma City is an ideal spot for Paul George, but I'm not a Pacers fan. I would love to see him go back to Indiana and play with Oladipo, Miles Turner, Lance Stevenson. Such a cool team to watch. And if you had a big star in Paul George, I mean, I know those other players wouldn't shine as much as they do now, but man, would that be a deadly team in the Eastern Conference? Yeah,
not a chance that happens on the way that things are going. But you're right. You mentioned that allowing those guys, that core, to shine. Nobody knew what Oladipo could do until he was handed the reins and they had some injuries and Paul George left their team. And now you get to see what Oladipo could do if you reinserted George back into the fold. I don't think Oladipo would be quite as impactful as he is. Stevenson's role diminishes. Miles Turner, I've never had faith in him. I know a lot of Pacers fans talk him up to be one of the next, great big men for the Pacers, but also in the league. I don't see it. His leadership's not there yet. I know he's still young, but he's not quite there yet. So you've got these pieces, and adding George back there would just, I think you'd get the same indie team that you had in the past that couldn't get over the hump.
You're right.
So, I think the George's best bet, here's a question for you. Would Paul George be better suited to stay in Oklahoma City and try to grind out a title there, or go to LA that promises, the riches and also, the nightlife and the weather being, as good as it gets? Because let's face it, Oklahoma City, that doesn't sound like a place I'm going to take a vacation to anytime soon.
Well, it's not just that. Los Angeles has so many pieces. I mean, Caldwell Pope, Lonzo Ball. I mean, as much as Lonzo is Lonzo, and even the prospect of LeBron going there, wouldn't that be an amazing team to watch? Kuzma on the rise. Wow.
Yeah.
The Lakers would be one of the best teams in the West already. I mean, you talk about Minnesota last season saying if they got one of the big pieces that they would be a team to talk about come playoff time, and they got Jimmy Butler, and now they're sitting pretty in the top part of the Western Conference. So you talk about the Lakers getting one of those two pieces or even both. The Lakers are right in there too.
Yeah, I don't know if the Lakers are going to be able to build their super team this offseason because there had been word out there that they weren't focused on that for whatever reason. So yeah, I don't know. I think George definitely could stay, another year, and it wouldn't be crazy. But you've got a very interesting free agent market in this offseason. So we'll find out.
Yeah, and heading over, it is pretty cold right now. It's February. We got the winter coats on, a lot of hot chocolate being passed around to drink. But another thing that comes with the winter, especially now in 2018, the Olympics in Pyeongchang. And they are going to be really interesting to watch, not just because of North Korea's involvement in it. We're not going to get too political right now. We're going to have some fun. Do you have any favorite competitions to watch, Stephen?
Yes, I do. Speed skating's always been one of those things that I thought was pretty interesting. Short track. The long track's a little too dull for me because they only have 2 guys out there at the same time. But no, the short track speed skating is something that I will watch over the next 2 weeks. Look out for Mame Biney. She is a U.S. short track speed skater. She's something special to watch. Her starts, especially, I've seen a few of her races, and she just gets off that line faster than I could run on land. So she's incredible. So that could be a name to watch. And I like my fair share of downhill skiing because those people end up going like close to 100 miles an hour down the huge mountain. So that's always fun.
Well, for me, it's always hockey. I mean, I'm from Chicago. Blackhawks fandom really got going back in 2010. I'm not going to say I was the biggest Blackhawks fan. I had NHL 04 back in the day, but I wasn't playing with the Blackhawks. I was playing with like the Hurricane or something. But the Blackhawks really got me into hockey. I'm definitely going to be watching that, see if USA can take home another medal, and even curling. Curling is so fun to watch. I love the whole atmosphere of that sport, and them trying to brush it and get it into play, try and get it into the goal. But yeah, I like curling.
Yeah, curling's interesting. I will say, not such a great year for your Blackhawks, huh?
I don't want to talk about it.
No, of course not. You want to talk when they're winning. That's fair. And then, we're talking about the NHL. They will not have an Olympic break this year, meaning that your favorite players will be excluded from Olympic competition. Are we going to see a different dynamic?
I mean, for USA, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Canada. I mean, think about it. I mean,
right.
Canada's going to be good still, but yeah, Canada.
Well, I think more so for the United States, they're gonna have a hard time in the Olympics. It's always fun to watch them, but Canada, Russia, I mean, the main frame in hockey, those countries always do well, and it's going to be an interesting time with the whole NHL season not giving players that Olympic break.
Yeah, and you mentioned you started following the Hawks, right around that first Stanley Cup. Do you remember the name Eric Daze?
No.
Uh-oh. Well, you got to do your research. You're going to have to study up. Don't want to come off as a bandwagon, but that's all right. No, the Hawks.
I come off as a bandwagon hardcore. I'm not afraid to say it.
You're a Warriors fan?
Oh, no, that's you.
Yeah, that is me.
Fan.
Yeah, that is me, actually. So, it's a long story that I'm going to keep short. But, I followed the Warriors quite a bit when they had Troy Murphy, and Baron Davis was one of my favorite players in the league. Davis. I also missed their old logo. That was awesome. But
the creepy
they're
guy coming out of the Warriors.
Yeah. I always thought that was cool. I tried to draw it once. It wasn't very good. And I also miss David Lee. He was one of those key pieces that got them to where they are today. But yeah, no, I'm a Warriors fan, but I also have the Chargers on my list, and they're not exactly doing so great. So,
well, I mean, all my teams are from Chicago, so I won't appear as a bandwagon fan, but definitely for hockey, Blackhawks, you can see me on the street with my leather Blackhawks jacket from 2010. I will be wearing that, and that takes us right into the end of the show. We had a great time here on the Fantasy Express. Again, you can listen to Ball State Women's Basketball versus Eastern Michigan tonight, tip-off at 7 o'clock. But that is it here for the Fantasy Express. We will be back next week with another edition at 6 o'clock. And we will see you next time. We have Steven at Steven_Sobek and me at Robert L. Segovia on Twitter. Make sure to follow us. And we will see you next time. Thank you for listening.